I'm Dr. Karen Hills Pruden, a career elevation expert for female middle managers seeking senior leadership positions. Today is installment 3 of the employment series. On our first installment, we had resumes do and don't. On our second installment, we had interview prep. And today we're going to talk about the day of the interview, what to do on the day of the interview, and a couple of pointers on how to answer various questions. So on the day of the interview, you want to be well rested. You don't want to eat 2 to 3 hours before your interview. You want to arrive at the location at least 30 minutes ahead of time. I would say get in the parking lot or get on the premises 30 minutes ahead of time. And then I want you to walk into the facility 15 minutes before your appointment time. And so you're going to check in at least 15 minutes prior to your appointment time. Your interview can't start at 5 if you're walking in at 5. So you want to give yourself a window of 15 minutes for you to check in. I also want you to remember that your interview starts the moment that you hit the premises. Anybody that you come in contact with, I want you to smile, say hello. If it's the janitor, the gardener, the receptionist, someone walking past as you're standing at the front desk, your interview begins the moment that you are on premises. So I want you to remember that. So you're going to get there about 30 minutes ahead of time, and then you're also going to walk in about 15 minutes ahead of time. Also, you want to be on time. If you have travel situations, for instance, I live in Virginia, we have a whole lot of water, which means that we have bridges and we have tunnels and we have traffic. So if you know that getting to the interview location is going to require you to go across a bridge or a tunnel or just through what you know to be traffic, then you need to allow enough time to get to that location. I don't care if you have to get to that location an hour ahead of time, but it's better to be there early than to arrive late. So allow yourself enough time to get to the interview location, given wherever the interview is located. And again, as I mentioned, as soon as you hit the premises, the interview starts. Everybody that you come in contact with can give feedback in terms of their experience interacting with you to whomever it is that you are interviewing with. And so once you arrive on premises, your interview has started. When you get, if you cut somebody off to get a parking space, that may not be a good idea. That person can possibly interact with whoever you're interviewing with and give some feedback as to how inconsiderate you were in regards to that parking space. If you are not pleasant to the receptionist, not a good idea. Again, everyone that you come in contact with on premises, your interview begins the moment that you set foot on premises. So keep that in mind. You want to, as you enter the interview area, whether it's a particular room, you want to introduce yourself. Sure, they know who you are, but you want to say, "Hi, I am Karen Pruden." "Hi, I am Karen Pruden." "Hi, I am Karen Pruden." If you have a number of panel interview members, you want to shake hands. I understand right now we got the coronavirus going on in the world, but generally you would shake hands. If you don't shake hands now, it is understood, but you want to make sure you at least introduce yourself. When you go into the interview room, do not sit until they tell you could sit. Do not assume that you can sit. So the proper etiquette is for you to wait for them to tell you where you can sit and that you can sit. So you want to keep in mind that you wait for them to give you the go-ahead to actually sit. Any loose items that you may have, car keys, cellular phone, anything like that, if you don't have a briefcase or a bag that you can put those loose items in, then they are to go on the floor. On the floor. No filling and fumbling with them in your lap or anything like that. Yes, your cell phone, if you choose to bring your cell phone into an interview, I suggest you don't. I suggest you leave it in the car. But if you're going to bring your cell phone, then your cell phone needs to be either in your briefcase or on the floor. Any electronics that you have with you should be off, not on vibrate, off. There's nothing more annoying for an interviewer than to hear throughout the whole interview. It's totally distracting. So if you're someone who do not believe in turning your cell phone off, leave it in the car. Leave it in the car. But if you're going to bring it in, any electronics, iPad, cell phone, then I'm going to need you to turn off that device so that it is not distracting for yourself as well as the interviewer. It goes without saying that you want to have a positive tone of voice, and you want to have a friendly disposition, and you want to certainly smile periodically. You don't have to smile all the time because you can get weirded out, if you have like a pasted on smile, but you want to smile periodically throughout your interview. You want to make sure that that your voice is not the same all the way through the interview. There are certain times when you are answering questions in the interview where your voice may have a little inflection. It may go up to make emphasis on various words regarding whatever it is that you are talking about. And so, sitting in an interview with someone's voice who is just monotone the whole interview, it never elevates in pitch, it comes across as a boring interview. So keep in mind, you want to have you want the pitch of your voice to go up and down given whatever you're talking about. Let's talk about certain things that you can use when answering questions. Do not be afraid of silence in the interview. Applicants have a tendency to get very nervous and feel like they have to fill in the silence in an interview. No, do not be intimidated by silence in an interview. It is okay for there to be a degree of silence in an interview, particularly when you have you have a panel or interviewer who is writing down your answers. Do not feel compelled to fill in that silence by speaking or answering questions or anything like that. So do not be afraid of silence. Also, you can use silence to your advantage. Do not be afraid to pause before answering questions. Why would you pause? To formulate your thoughts in your head so that when it comes out in an organized fashion when you're answering a question. So you can take up to 5 seconds to pause after being answered a question to formulate your thoughts so that when it comes out of your mouth, that your answer is organized, specific, and answer the questions that are being asked of you. You want to avoid starting sentences out with, I think. It goes without saying that if you are saying something, that you are communicating your thoughts. And so do not start sentences in a job interview with, I think. Simply say whatever it is that you want to communicate to the interview panel. And if for some reason, as you are answering a question during the interview process, you say something in error, do not apologize. Just make the correction and keep moving on. So do not apologize for anything that you say or you do in error. You just make the correction. Again, you want to make the correction and then you want to keep moving on. So silence is your friend. You can use a pause Use the pause to your advantage to formulate your thoughts. And then you also want to make sure that you don't use these pre-qualifiers such as I think. So those are a few things. So let's talk about answering the actual questions itself. So when you're answering the questions itself, I prefer that you use what is called the STAR method. The STAR method is when you're answering every question, you want to give an example with your answer. And you want to organize your example such as you want to communicate the situation, communicate the task that you use to address the situation, and the actions that you employ to address the situation and communicate the result. I want you to do that for every question they ask you in an interview. They ask you a question. I want you to think of a situation that is pertinent to the question that they're asking you. And then I want you to employ the STAR method, STAR, situations, tasks, actions, results, to each answer that you use to answer that question. Also, do not be afraid to ask for the interviewers to repeat a question or ask for a clarification of a question that is being asked of you. The goal is to answer the question correctly. So it is okay to ask for a clarification. When you're answering a question, also be honest. Please do not embellish when you're answering your questions for an interview process. Be honest. So Karen, suppose they ask me about something that I've never done before. This is how you answer that question. You say, I haven't had the privilege of being able to do that in my career. But if I had, this is how I would handle it. And then you answer how you would handle the situation. But you want to be honest and say, I haven't had the privilege of being able to address that situation. But you give them an answer. So they'll know that, one, what comes across is that you can problem solve. You can problem solve. Even though you had never come across that particular situation, by your answer, their answer will let them know how you would approach that problem and address that problem. And hopefully the answer that you give them is a successful answer, one that they would consider to be an appropriate answer. And so that'll let them know that although you have not come across that particular situation in your career, that you would be capable of addressing that situation if you come across that situation. Always answer your questions with the people in the room in mind. Keep in mind, if you have a room full of managers, then make sure that your answer considers the fact that you're answering the question for managers. If you have a hybrid interview panel, meaning that you have a combination of peers, someone who would be your peer and a manager, then sometimes you even want to clarify your answers to say, given the role that you're interviewing for, the role that I'm interviewing for is a manager position. Given that role, this is how I would handle it. However, if I was an employee, a frontline employee, this is how I would expect the frontline employee to handle it. So you want to always keep in mind your audience in terms of the interview panel, in terms of you answering the questions. It is okay to speak slowly. This is one of my challenges. I talk fast. When I talk fast. I don't talk all the time because I'm a borderline introvert / extrovert. But when I do talk, particularly about something that I am very knowledgeable about, the information is free-flowing and I have a tendency to pick up the speed. So in the interview process, because you want the interviewers to understand what it is that you're talking so that they will know that you are answering the question correctly, I want you to be okay with speaking slowly. So if you know that you're one who talks fairly fast or can pick up the speed, or if you feel yourself picking up the speed, go ahead and slow yourself down. And you don't have to announce it. Go ahead and slow yourself down, and so that they can clearly hear how it is that you would address the situation. So you want to ask for clarification. You want to be honest with your answers. Do not lie, but you can give them a hypothetical answer. You want to stay true to your messaging, focus on, what it is that you're trying to articulate in terms of how you're matching up your previous experience with the example or the question that they're asking you. And then also, I want you to avoid any topics that may get you in trouble. What are those topics? Well, there's no need to talk about marital status, children, religion, politics, age, none of that. It's actually illegal for them to even ask that in the interview, but don't you bring it up. So don't even insert those type of topics into your interview process. Speak slowly, use the STAR method: situation, task, action, and results. Give an example for every question that they ask you. And you should be fairly fine. So I have actually created an example so that you can hear the use of the STAR method. And so I'm going to, if you can pardon me, I'm going to read what I have here. So again, STAR method: situation, task, action, results. So here is the question. Tell me about a time you were able to satisfy an upset customer. So that is the interviewers asking me that question. This is what I would use for the STAR method. And I wrote this out for you. The situation: I said, our new product was set to be released in May and was highly anticipated in the industry. In fact, one of our biggest customers was already relying on our product to include in his own business platform. Unfortunately, one of our suppliers didn't meet our contract needs in April, which could have delayed our product release and would have made that customer dissatisfied. So what is the issue? They had a new product coming out. One of their clients were already relying on the product to add in their business, and now there's a delay in the product. So that is the situation. Okay, the next is task. Remember, S-T, task. So what was the task? To address this problem, my team had to find a new supplier as quickly as possible or look for an alternate way to satisfy our customer. Again, what was in jeopardy? What was in jeopardy is that they were going to disappoint a customer. What did they seek to do? They seek to find a comparable, a new supplier of the same product so that they can provide this product to their customer. So that was the task. This is the action. After conducting research into suppliers, it became evident that none would be able to help meet our product needs. Leading the product team back to the drawing board, we altered the design of our product in a way that let us utilize a ready supplier without compromising the primary functionality of our product. They found a different way of approaching it. They used an existing product and made some alterations in-house so that it would work for their client. The result are, because we worked with the new supplier, had readily available, we were able to complete production on schedule. So they were able to get the product to their client on time. The cost of the new supplier was less than the original. That is key, and I'll tell you why. So our price point was able to be reduced as well. Both of these results greatly pleased our customer, which ended up increasing its order and putting us over our sales goal within the first 3 months of product availability. STAR method. What was the situation? Had a new product coming out. The supplier wasn't able to provide the new product as originally thought. Task. What did they have to do? They had to figure out another way to get that product for their customer. What was the action? They took an existing product and made alterations to it with an existing supplier and got the product to their customer. And not only that, it was under in the price point, so they saved money. Again, keep in mind what I said in the previous installment. Our job as an employee is to do one of three things. Whatever we do should either make money, save money, or contribute to the completion of the organizational goals. This was an awesome example that I came up with, and this is what I want you to be thinking about when you are answering your questions. Do your questions fall in the bucket of make money, save money, help complete the organizational goals? Because your answers should fall into those three buckets. Have a few questions here. Before we close, I want to look and see. The question was, what if I have never done what they asked me about? Again, I've answered that previously. You want to say, I have not come across that in my career. However, if I did, and then provide them an answer as to how you would handle it. Another question here is, if you make an error in your answer, what should I do? Do not apologize. I mentioned that earlier. You do not want to apologize. You want to correct the error, and then you want to move on. Remember, you want to use metrics in your answers. How much money did you make for the organization? How much money did you save for the organization? How did what you did help contribute to the completion of the organizational goals? Make money, save money, contribute to the completion of the organizational goals. Then, after you've answered all of the questions that they have for you, if you're my coaching client, you know that it is my expectation that you have a list of questions from them. Remember, in session number 2, interview prep, we talked about the research that you are going to do. And as a result of your research, you're going to have plenty of questions to have for them. The interview process is a 2-way process. Someone has a question here. How do I answer the question? Tell us a little about yourself. Okay, well, first of all, please do not go all the way back to high school. That is one of the things that people, and you don't want to mention things such as religion, politics, that can tell your age or your marital status. What you can say, how I answer the question, and I'll give you an example. Karen, tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, I am a business partner with a specialty in HR. I originally started my career in operations and business as a manager. I later moved on to HR, and I've been in HR for 20 years. I've worked all disciplines of HR. And then you would list the disciplines of HR. And if you want to, you can talk about what you consider to be your specialty, because everyone should have a specialty. Everyone should have a specialty. So keep in mind, what are you a specialist in? So my specialty is conflict management, employee relations. I'm very, very, very good at that. People know me for how I do investigations, and then that spills over to my knowledge of other things. So when you answer that question, you want to talk about last 10, maybe 10, 15 years. You want to talk about maybe what you like, what you don't like. You can talk about any type of hobbies that you do, as long as you aren't revealing to them in your hobbies anything about your political affiliations or your age or anything like that. Correct. Someone says, so go back as far as what's listed on your resume. Correct, because keep in mind, we talked about this in interview prep. Your resume is only going to have the last 10 to 15 years. closer to 10 than 15. So you want to go back as far as that. And you do not have to tell them every position you have. You want to be able to summarize this and maybe answer this question in possibly 1 to 2 minutes. So tell me about yourself, be able to answer it in 1 to 2 minutes. So great question. So after you ask your questions, what I also want you to do is ask about the next steps in the process. And before I get to that question, there is another question here. What if you have a lapse in employment? If you have had a lapse in employment, then you just want to go ahead and explain it. It's going to be there. It's going to be on the resume. Go ahead and explain it before they ask about it. And have a answer as to how you're going to address that lapse in employment. If you, for instance, if you were a mother, keep in mind I said you don't want to mention things about kids or marital status or anything like that, but what you can say is that you took some time out to focus on family. See that? I took some time out for 2 years. You'll notice on my resume, you can bring their attention to it. You'll notice on my resume from 90 to 92 that there's a gap on my resume, and I took some time out to focus on family. So that's if you have a lapse in employment, that's how you explain it. So in closing, what you want to do is you want to ask about the next steps in the process and the timeline. You don't want to be waiting by your phone to see if you're going to make it to the next levels. Because generally, I deal with a lot of manager, directors, and above. They're multi-level employment recruitment process. So you get through the first level, you go to the next level. So generally, a reputable company will get to you within 7 days to let you know if you've made it to the next level in the process. But sometimes things do happen, so don't hold me to that. But you want to ask them about the next steps in the timeline. And then you want to thank them for an opportunity to interview with them. Yes, you want to thank them. So that is all I have for you today. We'll decide on how we're going to address, what we'll address on next week. We have a question coming in here. How do I answer, why should we hire you for this position? Well, you should know that. Why should we hire you? You want to list your accomplishments. You want to list your certifications, your education, your years of experience. You want to, if you're known as a expert in a particular field that is beneficial for the position that you're interviewing for, then you want to mention that as well. But years of experience, education, if you work for some top companies, top companies in your industry, you want to mention that as well. So that is your opportunity to brag about what it is that you bring to the table. And there is a saying about the big me. And so you want to articulate, what is the big you? What are all of your accomplishments? And you should know them, what those accomplishments are. Think about those accomplishments, how they are relevant to the job that you're interviewing for, and those are all of the reasons why they should hire you for the position. I am Dr. Karen Hills Pruden. I'm the career elevation expert for female middle managers seeking senior leadership positions. I'm excited to be here. Please follow me on social media. I have all of my links attached to this Facebook Live, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.